Welcome to episode number 110 of Broad Street Hustle. Big show tonight. It's our Belmont Stakes show. And it being a big race show, we do have a very special guest joining us. But before we get into horses, we'll touch briefly on the NBA Finals, give out some predictions, prop bets, etc. I'm your host tonight, Jason Sayeda, and episode 110 of Broad Street Hustle is brought to you by our sponsor, Giovannina's Pizza. You've tried the rest, now try the best, Giovannina's Pizza. So, Tommy can't join us tonight, but we are joined by our other regular guest host, whatever you want to say. The first is Jimmy the Chalk. What's up, Jim?
Whatever label you want to give me, I've been called worse, so that's fine.
You guys we're all hosts, so you are a host. You're a co-host. We're all co-hosts. And our other co-host is Chris Meeker. What's up, Meeker?
What's up, gentlemen?
So, like I said, we are joined by a special guest. He is the legend. He's the one and only Jimmy D. What's up, Jim?
Hi, guys. I guess I was the only one you could find tonight. That's okay.
Oh, no. You know you're welcome any week.
Always,
but especially a week when we're going to talk about the spa. So,
looking forward to that.
It's a spa week.
Yes, sir.
So, can't wait. So, all right, let's get into it. So it's Celtics and Mavs in the NBA Finals starting tomorrow night. We're taping on Wednesday, so starting Thursday. The Celtics had a pretty easy path getting there, getting through the East, ending with a sweep of the Pacers. The Mavs, on the other hand, they went through a gauntlet, and including beating the defending champion Nuggets, and then dispatching of the Minnesota Timberwolves pretty easily last series. So odds right now, the Celtics are minus 210. The Mavs are plus 175. I'll throw it to Chalky to start. Chalky, any thoughts? What are your thoughts on the finals?
So while, Boston's strength of schedule, if you will, in the playoffs is nothing special, but the East really wasn't much other than them this year. So you can't fault them for the opponents they get. And the two conference championships were short, but they were actually competitive when you look at the game by game. About 3 games in each series were very close. I mean, Boston was trailing late in 3 of the games they won, 2 of them which Indiana did not have their best player in Halliburton. So, you could say that maybe they're overrated, or maybe you give them credit for gutting those games out and finding a way to win. That'll be depending on who you like or not. But interesting storyline with Kyrie coming back to Boston now in the finals, and this year has really been about redemption for him. He's had a lot of knocks on himself over the years, whether it's his attitude or his opinions on what shape the earth is or whatnot. But really, this year he has been the perfect teammate. Any of the outside distractions or nonsense or whatever you want to say, he kind of put it to bed, because he basically worked his way out of 3 previous teams for not being a good teammate. And there were some concerns when he first went to Dallas that he could be ending up that way because he had some things to say last year, but he re-signed there, and he's been the perfect teammate this year. And yeah, I probably didn't give him enough credit, as Tommy said in the conference preview finals, as being a real key there. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I won't take long. I just think Boston is a deeper, more well-rounded team. I don't think Dallas will have enough to get it done. I think Boston in 6. So if you want to bet that straight, that's plus 475 right now, that scenario. 2 other bets that I would give out in general is, if you want to do a spread on the games, you can lay Boston minus 1.5 games at even money. So basically, if you think they're going to win, but it won't go 7, you would hit that bet. And then if you think it's a long series, but you're not sure, the over-under in the series for total games is 5.5. I like the over there. That's minus 165, so it is the favorite. But I think if Dallas does somehow win, it's not going to be in 5 or 4. So I think a 6-game series is certainly reasonable. And but I think Boston gets it done, much to the chagrin of those of us that have known to hate Boston over the years.
Yeah, I'll withhold my pick until the end. I guess we'll throw it to Meeker. What are your thoughts, Meeker? Do you have any analysis or thoughts, or what do you got?
Yeah, like I do, like for the Super Bowl, the World Series, kind of just pick keys to both teams winning the finals. And I'll start with the Celtics. And I'm just going to pick three keys for each team, and you guys can talk about it if you'd like. So, first off, how will Porzingis look after his return? He's coming back from a calf injury. He's barely played in a month and a half now. And I think he's a big piece to the series, both offensively and defensively. And if he's able to play 30 minutes a game and contribute 15 points, 8 rebounds, affect Dallas's ability to get second chances, I think more defensively, this will play a big part in the Celtics winning the series. What do you guys think about the Porzingis factor?
Jimmy D,
I think they
any
need him.
thoughts?
I don't think they win without him, to be honest with you. I think he's that strong of an individual. But yeah, I think he makes a big difference. It's a big difference between him and Al Horford, I'll tell you that much. And I kind of feel the same way Jimmy does about Boston, Jimmy the Chalk, because they're just stronger in every position. But the one factor would be the rebounding, and I think Porzingis really would probably make them prohibitive at that situation.
How about you, Chalky?
Yeah, I think he is a key because I think, Boston's strength, one of their strengths is in their depth, and he's an extra piece to that. I will say, I don't think you're getting 30 minutes a game out of them, at least not in the first 3 or 4 games, maybe. So they're going to have to win without that kind of contribution coming from him, at least at the start of the series. But, their depth is where I think they hold the cards, and he'll be key to that.
I agree with Chalky. I think you're not going to see much of him. I think he may start, but he's not going to play starter minutes. He is very important. I'll agree with Jimmy D and Meeker as well on that front. But I don't see it. I believe someone asked him the question the other day, and about him being 100%, and he kind of laughed and just didn't respond. So I think that'll answer the question there. So I don't think you're going to see much of him, but he's going to try and play.
Okay, so defense is a strength of Boston, but hasn't faced a backcourt like Dallas is. It's strength against strength because Dallas has the best players. Dallas's best players play with the ball. Boston has good on-ball defenders with Drew Holiday and Derek White. So, like last series versus Minnesota, when Kyrie and Luka scored 60 points, they're going to be difficult to beat. But if they hold Kyrie and Luka under 50, they're vulnerable because the rest of the team isn't good enough to make enough points to win the games, especially against a Boston team. Do you agree that the role players of Boston being better than the role players of Dallas in terms of scoring is the difference in the series?
Pick somebody.
Jimmy D?
Chris, I'll answer that in the sense that the 2 games that they played this year, just looking back over that, and I understand that you can't always be that because certain players were not playing. Porzingis didn't play in one of those games. But just to answer that question, Doncic and Kyrie Irving scored 56 in both of those games. And in both of those games, they were blown out. Both of them. It was not competitive from the halftime. They just, in that situation, Tatum and Brown were dominant. They were scoring 75 apiece. They scored 75 in one game, and they scored 57 in another. We're just going to 2 stars. A lot of the situations, if you listen to that inside the NBA and all that nonsense, they got these 2 guys as the best backcourt ever. Oh, come on. Like, I get it. They're good. And they've had great series. And I'm all for the underdog. But, Kyrie got hot. Doncic is a stud. But I don't see that team matching up well with Boston. And I don't want to get off your point, Chris. But so I'll end it here, and I'll come back to what I want to say later. But I don't think it matters what they score. I think Boston is just too deep, too many players. They're too big for this team, especially if Porzingis is playing.
Jimmy?
Yeah, I mean, I referenced their depth before, so I'll just reiterate it. And Porzingis gives them 7-8 legit options. And, you're not going to expect Horford to score double digits necessarily, but he'll have those games. They were usually against the Sixers. Maybe he'll do it against Dallas. But I mean, if Porzingis is starting, you legitimately, I forget, was White an All-Star this year?
I don't think so, Jim.
I don't think so.
I don't
No.
believe so.
So you, but so with if Porzingis is in the lineup, you have four all-star type players and one borderline at times in Derek White. So that spreads the burden out. So yeah, Tatum's not going to have good games. Brown's not going to have good games. But you have these other guys that can come in, and we talked a little bit about him a couple weeks ago when Meeker, you asked about which former Sixer could you put on the team, and it wasn't even a guy I thought of right away. But I really like Holiday, and he's really fit in well there. And in that backcourt, Holiday and White, you have size. They're 6'4". So these aren't small guys. They may not be as bulky as Luka or whatever, but these guys can hang with him and these guys can play and they'll stay with it. So if one of them is not on their game, it's almost definitely lights out for Dallas, and they have the defense that could get those games.
Jay?
Yeah, I don't think I think the only way Dallas wins is if Kyrie and Luka go off. I don't think the role players are going to play a big part at all for Dallas. I mean, it's strictly Kyrie and Luka. And Jimmy D, I don't think they're the best backcourt of all time, but what I do think is you basically have two of the top offensive players of all time playing together in their prime, right? And I think that's right. And I think that's what's really driving them. And, say what you want about Kyrie. When his head's into it, he's one of the best players ever. I mean, he really is. He's probably a top 50 player of all time. So, and we all know Luka is. So, I'll get to my prediction at the end, but I think they have a legit shot, and I think their shot is based on Luka and Kyrie.
Yeah. So, Jason, in previous podcasts, I heard you say, Luka is looks tired sometimes, right? He's not in shape, so forth. So I want to bring that point up here. I think one of the keys of the series is getting Luka tired on defense and taking advantage of his defensive inefficiencies, because he's not the best defender. He's not a good defender at all.
Defender, no.
Yeah, but he needs to guard somebody. And with as much moving around and pick and pops as Boston likes to use, if they find Luka in defense and his assignment, if they can wear him down and affect his offensive efficiency, I mean, he won't be shut down, but given the slightest difference in his offensive efficiency because he's tired from defense, that might be the difference in some games, especially in close ones. So I know that you talk about that a lot. I'm going to start with you. How important you think it is to get him tired on D?
I don't think Luka's defense is going to matter at all. I mean, the way they've gotten this far is offense. Luka's offense, right? If they have to rely on him defensively, it's not gonna happen. But they don't. So I don't think that's an important part. I just think, I think if Luka and Kyrie go off, I think they're going to win. I really do. I just think it's just like I said, they're two. You have two of the top 50 probably players of all time playing together in their prime. If you look back, there's not many teams that could say that they've had that. So I just think they've gotten hot at the right time, and I don't think defense. I don't think either one's defense is going to be an important factor in this series.
Jimmy, quickly.
Chris, I'll tell you what, I agree with Jason in the sense that somebody gets hot. It's an intangible that you cannot address statistically. And as much as I can favor Boston if I run by the stats, and I know you have, Chris, but there's that one element that says, oh my God, how did this happen? When these guys get into a playoff and they're a marginal team and then they get hot, all of a sudden they're untouchable. I can see that. I could see that, possibly happening. I see Boston sometimes falling asleep. And there's times in the fourth quarter, Tatum's has 8 points. And you say, where's he been all game? All right, he finishes with 30, don't get me wrong. But they go to sleep. And if they can go to sleep once or twice and they get that momentum, Dallas, maybe. That's probably the only way I see that, occurring.
Chalky?
Yeah, I'll go back to depth. If Luka can't stay in shape and he gets winded, like now you're just minimizing, your best or second best player, however you want to rank the two. And Jason's point, there's teams where they had, two, you could say Pippen and Jordan, O'Neal and Bryant maybe were both top 50 players, but you could probably also say Kyrie and Durant, Kyrie and LeBron were top 50 players. Kyrie and LeBron got one thanks to Kyrie hitting that shot, but they obviously didn't work out in Brooklyn. And then, you want to talk about best backcourts. I mean, I don't think you can anoint this the best backcourt until they win a championship, because Steph Curry and Klay Thompson won 4, 2 of them without Kevin Durant, and so that could be 2 or 3 of the top 50 players of all time, like in that there. I mean, I think if it's going to happen, the way Dallas has to do it is almost similar to the way they won their last one. I mean, they were definitely an underdog against that Heat team that had the stars on it, and you had the already made Hall of Famer in Dirk, so we can anoint Kyrie that. And he didn't have a second player as good as Luka, but Jason Kidd was productive, and Jason Terry, I believe, like went off that series too. So you need that third or fourth guy to come up. I even as great as these guys are, unless they're on every game, I don't think you get 4 against this Boston team. And I again, this is not me being effusive and loving Boston, because all the kind of warts that Jimmy and I pointed out, yeah, they can fall asleep. I don't think Missoula is a great coach, but I think he's better than Jason Kidd. Like I honestly don't think much of as Jason Kidd as a coach. I really don't. But maybe they are that talented and they're better. They'll carry it through. But I just think Boston has too much. And if Luka gets tired, you're down to Kyrie.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to address. I'm going to go with Jason on the first answer to this because he kind of touched on it. Complementary players on Dallas have to continue to be a factor defensively and offensively. Your Jones Juniors, Gafford, Lively, Washington, they've all played well throughout the playoffs and been efficient with their three-point shooting. And the bigs have gotten some big rebounds that have to continue, because I don't think Luka and Kyrie can win this series on their own. However, you seem to think they could. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, you look at the MVP odds, right? Doncic is plus 205. Kyrie is plus 2,200. I didn't even go any further than that. God knows what these other guys' odds are, right? So, it's basically, like I said, if they win, it's going to be because of Luka and Kyrie. Yeah, does P.J. Washington have to hit a 3 every so often? Of course. Does Gafford have to D up and get rebounds? Of course, right? But when it comes down to it, if you look at the box score and Luka and Kyrie don't both have really good games, they're probably not winning the game.
Yeah. Since you guys have already talked about the depth, that kind of answered that. So I'm just going to move on to the next one. This is something that, I mean, again, Jason's been harping on. Kyrie and Luka have to continue to be the 2 best closers in the playoffs. If these games are going to come down to the last 2 minutes of games, like a lot of the Mavs playoffs games have been, it's going to come down to who you trust more, Tatum and Brown or Luka and Kyrie. Given how these playoffs have gone, Luka and Kyrie have been elite closers, and I would trust them more than Boston's best to win close games. You really win the series if these guys close.
Agree 100% with what you just said, Chris. If it comes down to that, which I don't think it will, but if it does come down to that, and sometimes these games, somehow or another always get real tight at the end, they certainly have the 2 best closers unequivocally.
Yep. Chalky?
I would agree with that, but when you go to Boston and closers, I would elevate Holiday and White as they're not better players, but they are more clutch. Their percentage of hitting those shots in the end, I trust them a little more than certainly Brown, maybe not Tatum, but yeah, those 2 I think are your guys I'm looking for. So they're not the stars. So yeah, you go with Luka and Kyrie there.
Jason, I know you believe that because you've been talking about it. Anything to add?
I'll talk about Tatum and Brown. I see softness in those guys. I just do. I see softness in the Celtics. Are they deeper than Dallas? Yes. I still think that Tatum, something about Tatum, like he's soft to me. He's not super. He's not Tobias Harris soft, but you know, and he's a great player. Don't get me wrong, but he's got to prove it to me.
Gotcha. All right, I'll leave you guys with the last one. So efficiency on corner threes. Boston led the league and led the NBA with the lowest percentage of 3-point makes, let's say, on corner threes at 23.5%. Dallas has hit the most at 40.4%. So it's strength versus strength. Mainly from the way Luka's game is predicated on handling the ball and waiting for a double team and finding the open 3-point shooter. I don't know that Boston will feel the need to play Luka defensively the way other teams have in the playoffs, because every player on the court for Boston is a good defensive player. So will that shot be available? And will the way Boston defends corner threes, this statistic speaks to me more about how Boston is probably going to win the series. And I'll leave it at me predicting Boston to win the series in 7. But let's talk about this part. Chalky.
I mean, throw out the big, because even if Porzingis is playing, he's not going to be 100% healthy. But take him and Horford out of it, you have 4 athletic players in the lineup. So you can have guys fly around, be active, rotate, however you want to do it, to cut down on those kind of opportunities. And yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to double Luka as much as maybe some of these other teams have, because they're going to trust White or Holiday out on an island with him. And look, if he starts cooking, maybe they change it up, maybe they don't. But I think they have the athleticism to be able to, even if they do switch a guy over, maybe have 2 guys over, to rotate with enough speed that those corner threes won't be as open as maybe some of the other opponents that Dallas has had.
Jason?
I mean, it's just going to come down to a hot team. Like if Boston's shooting lights out, 3-pointers, they're going to win the game. So, you know, for Dallas, you need P.J. Washington to be hitting shots, open threes. If it comes down to the threes, I mean, you know, and it's basically who's the hot team. Boston's probably a better 3-point shooting team than Dallas, but I have different opinion on what's going to win the series.
Jimmy,
I'll tell you, Chris, you know, for me, to root for the Boston Celtics is like an insomnia. You guys are a little too young, but, you know, I go back to Wilt and Russell. I don't have to talk about Havlicek. I don't have to talk about Bird. I don't have to talk about Paul Pierce. I hate Boston with a passion. I would say more than the New York teams, but some of my New York friends are going to watch this podcast. So I'll say Boston is the all-time difficult team to root for. In terms of that 3-point, Boston never had to defend it. They were just so much better than everybody else. That team is 41-11 on the road. They're 37-4 at home. Against the West, they're 23-7. They ate up the Mavericks during the season. It's got to be a total, and of course I respect my good friend Jason's opinion, but it's got to be a total aberration for this Maverick team to beat this Boston team. And I wish it was different than that, but I can't see it at all. They make their defensive changes, you know, and Jimmy's right, that coach stinks, but they make a couple defensive changes. They're just bigger than this team. You know, Gafford and P.J. Washington, I guess they're going to church every Sunday, thanking God they got out of those 2 desolate franchises. But I can't see Lively or Jones picking it up and scoring 15 and 20, and they're going to have to do that because the pressure is going to be just ungodly on Luka and Kyrie to continue to carry this team. I don't see it. I just don't see it. Maybe if they had, you know, Rolando Blackman, Mark Aguirre, and Dirk Nowitzki, they'd have a chance. But they don't have them, and I don't think they're playing come tomorrow night. I see Boston, and I know you didn't ask for this, but I see Boston in 5.
No, that would be my next question. What's your prediction? I think we're going to get a different answer out of Jason.
Yeah, I'm going to say Dallas in 7.
And Chalky, you picked Boston in 6,
Boston
right?
6, yes. And I just looked it up real quick. So the third choice for Dallas, if you're going for the MVP, is PJ Washington at plus 30,000.
300 to 1.
So 300 to 1 on PJ Washington. I think Lively or Jones is next at 50 or 500 to 1.
Wow.
Okay. So what's that tell you?
You got a good bet, Jason. Good wins.
Yeah, I mean,
you got a good bet, pal.
Yeah. That
Won't
last
be my
point I
money
think
on
I
it.
made is the biggest one I think that leads me to believe Boston's going to win. I mean, I think it's more on the defensive side than it is anything else. I think Luka and Kyrie are going to get their points for sure. I just think that they need a supporting cast, like you were saying, Jimmy, to be able to match up against Boston's complementary cast. It's not all about Tatum and it's not all about Jaylen Brown on this team because they are deep, like you've been saying, Jimmy. I mean, I hate to root for Boston too. I really do. And I'm not going to root for Boston, but I'm going to say they're going to win in 7.
All right. I don't know if you guys had any quick MVP bets. I have money on Derek White from a long time ago. I got better than 35 to 1. I'll tell you that. I think I have 65 or 70 to 1. And I'll probably put something on Luka because I don't think anybody else will win if Dallas wins. So, Chalky, any MVP bets?
You mentioned Kyrie at 22 to 1. I think if Dallas wins, it's got to be because he's the MVP.
Okay. How
Here's
about
the
you,
value.
Jimmy
The
D?
value's on Dallas' side, Jay. So, if I'm making a bet, I would go towards the value. But I just don't think, I think the MVP of the series will be Jaylen Brown.
Okay. Meeker?
Yeah, the value I thought was on Jaylen Brown too. So if that was going to make a bet, I think that's where I would go because I think Boston's going to win the series.
All right. So with that, I guess, Meeker, we will say good night. Maybe we'll see you at the spa. Never know.
Probably.
All right. All right, Meeker. Well, thanks for joining us. And I guess it's time to move on to the horses.
All right, we're back to go over the pick 5 for Belmont Stakes Day. This will be the pick 5 that ends in the Belmont Stakes. So technically not the late pick 5 as there is one that starts with race 10. But this one will be an all grade 1, races 8 through 12 for Belmont Day at beautiful Saratoga Racecourse. First time ever that the Belmont Stakes is run up in Saratoga. 2-year stint while they renovate or actually rebuild Belmont downstate. So probably the hottest Belmont ticket in a non-Triple Crown year. I mean, maybe more than that. I think I saw some resale values that were more than I paid to see American Pharoah win up at win the Triple Crown finally. But resale value, if you got a seat, is very high. But we'll get right into it. So first race in the sequence, like I said, is race 8. That is the grade 1 Woody Stevens, 7 furlongs on the dirt for 3-year-olds. Post time is 3:22. We have a couple of Baffertson here. He won last year with Arabian Lion. A couple run backs from the Pat Day Mile on the Derby undercard. Let's start off with Jason. What are your thoughts?
So I have a strong feeling in this race, and I just think the 8 Vlahos could be a freak. He's cutting back from a mile. Probably should have won the Pat Day Mile on Derby Day. I think he's the speed of the speed. I just think he's going to run these horses off their feet, and I'm singling this 8. He's going to play a big part in whether or not I have a good day on Saturday.
All right, Jimmy D.
Damn, Jason, I thought I had something special, but I guess not.
So he's not going to be 6 to 1.
That's
so
what I thought.
Forget that.
And I thought I had a little value there. I've seen him.
Yeah.
I was there on the Kentucky Derby day, and that track
That's
was
right.
playing funky. And first, speed was holding up all day long, and then some of the closers, and then speed again. I don't know how they graded that track that day, but it was really funky. But the 8 horse he was strong, man. Who beat him that day was Seas de Grey and Nash. I mean, my God, that's all you need to know. He's getting better and better. It's his 3rd start, lifetime. I think he cruises in this race. I really like him. I wouldn't single him because of the 7 horse of Prince of Morocco. Baffert's got a live horse coming in. In the Bookham Dano horse, the one thing, and I'll say this and I'll repeat myself as we go along here, I don't like these horses coming from Saudi Arabia. I just don't like it. They don't win when they come back. They're all good, and they're all great, and they will be great again. But for some reason, when they come back, they just don't win initially. I'd be on the 8. I'd be with you, Jay, on that race.
Yeah, for me, it's the 8 as well as the top choice. The Pat Day Mile, you could say it was validated with Seize the Gray's run back in the Preakness. So for me, it's the 8 followed by the 9, Nash, who also came out of that race. And I did have the 1 Bookham Dano in the mix primarily, and I'm not a fan of the shipping in from Saudi either, but Forever Young barely got by him or got him by a head, and that was my Derby pick, and he ran a hell of a race in the Derby, so maybe that validated the form a little bit. I'll have Bookham Dano in there as well. Jay, you said that's a single, so nothing else for you in this race?
Yeah, I'm going to just try to, like I said, just get by with the 8 and just hope he's a freak. I know I'm not getting 6-1 on him, but, in doubles and pick 3s and probably in this pick 5, he will be my one and only pick. I do respect the 7 Prince of Monaco for Baffert. He looks like he's a one-turn horse, so he's going to be tough. But I'm just banking on Vlahos just leaving everybody in his dust.
All right, let's move on to leg 2, the race. Race 9, the Jaipur at 5.5 on the turf for 3-year-olds and up. Post time 4:08. Now, when it was being run at Belmont, this was a 6-furlong race. At Saratoga, that's going to be 5.5. I assume that's the reason a 2-time winner like Casa Creed is ducking the field this year and running in a softer spot earlier in the card.
Oh, you're killing me, Mike. You're killing me.
For our purposes, it does leave a little bit of mystery as to who Jimmy D will pick. So let's start with you, Jimmy. Who is your pick in the race since Casa Creed is running in the 5th?
Casa Creed is now my kitchen. We live together. But, I watch, I get influenced sometimes by what I see, especially when I see it personally. Cogburn was a just monster, an absolute monster in Kentucky. He won that race so easy. He could have won by 10. And I've heard Jason say this many times. I rat on the turf. Why are we going any further? That's a hard argument, one that I will never engage. I agree with that. And I think Cogburn, I wouldn't use him as a single. I do have a single in this Big 5. It's not him. This Mischief Magic, another horse that on, in a day where you couldn't close, he closed from 10th to 3rd. I think he's got a shot at 12 horse. Even the 6 has a little shot in that race. I guess I'm giving away my pick 5. But on the other hand, Cogburn is just so tough. Asmussen loves him. I think he's the best sprinter in this group, and I think he should win this race.
Yeah, I was back and forth, but I ended up on Cogburn as well. So no big shock. But he's won at 5.5. He's won at Saratoga, although that was on soft ground last year. Currently, as it stands, it looks like we're going to avoid some moisture in the forecast, so it should be fast and firm. But it can always change on a dime up there. And the other, my other horses were the logicals. Arzak, that was the other one I was going back and forth. Loves 5.5, has won a couple nice races down at Keeneland. And then, of course, when Applebee's involved, you always have to give that a look. And I had the 12 as opposed to the 6. The distance might, he might want 6 furlongs, the 12. But that's the horse Buick is on. And Buick, when he comes over, he wins these kind of races. He could have had either runner from Appleby, and he went with the Mischief Magic. So 8, 2, and 12 for me in this one. Jason?
So it's scary for me because I usually have no idea on turf sprints, but I really feel like I have a strong opinion on this race. And Jimmy D, it's basically your opinion. So I think this Cogburn is just, if you look at his PPs, once he moved to turf, the horse just exploded. He's got a win at the Spa. He's got IRAD. He's by far, to me, the most likely winner. But I watched a lot of tape of video of races the last couple of days, and I also think this 12 Mischief Magic, he's getting Buick back. He didn't have Buick last race. I think he had Del Torre, who listen, to me, Del Torre is one of the all-time great riders. I don't think he is anymore. I think he's slipping a little bit. I think Buick is a huge upgrade there. This horse has a crazy turn of foot, and I think he's very live if Cogburn falters. And I think he's, your most likely other winner in this race. That's going to be an exacta for me, but keep an eye on the 15 American Monarch if he gets into the race. I love, you guys know I love IRAD on turf. I love Lascano on turf, and especially on Saratoga turf, right? This horse has a win at the Spa, and like I said, Lascano on turf is very underrated. I don't know if he's going to get in as the 15, but just keep an eye there. I like two horses underneath, the 6 Star of Mystery, who I believe Jimmy D brought up. And I like the 9 Sousa Summer as a long shot. Seems to like Saratoga. I don't think he could win, but he could definitely get the board. But 8 and 12 are going to be my win candidates.
Jace, let me just interject one thing, Jim, and Jimmy, to talk to before you go on. You're right about the Tory. He's a great, great jockey. But he's been on this retirement tour now for 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. I think he's embarrassing himself. I watched him in Kentucky. He was nowhere to be found. I watched some of his rides over again. He was nowhere. And he had no horse. He wanted no parts. He didn't want to engage. That's not my kind of jockey. Not at this point in time in his career. It's a shame he's still.
I couldn't
Not to mention the Preakness ride, which he does stay on that horse for the race season.
There you go,
which is interesting.
And there you go, Chuck. You're right.
Make of that what you will. If you've listened to the podcast, you kind of know our thoughts on that already. All right, so on to race 10, which is the Grade 1 Metropolitan Handicap, a.k.a. the Met Mile. Shortest field on the day at 6 entries. This is run at, I guess, what you could call a 1.5 turn mile as they're coming out of the Wilson Chute. Post time is Grade 1 Wilson Chute. Didn't think we'd be saying that. But anyway, post time is 4:52. 2 heavy favorites in here, so I'll go first. Both National Treasure and White Abario have run some big numbers. They're both coming out of a failed attempt over in Saudi Arabia. So it's like, what do you make of that? White Abario definitely did not run well. Did he kind of hit the wall? Did Dutro Magic running out? Did he not like the trip? Who knows? But he's won at this track. He's got IRAD on it. So he ran a good race in this race last year, losing to Cody's Wish. I'm going to put him on top. He's 6-5. It's not a long shot. He's probably a single. If we were going to go more than one deep for me, I would throw Hoist the Gold in there. He had the Cigar Mile, although on an off track to close out 23. He was dusted in this race last year, but I think he's got a chance if the pace falls apart. I'm sorry, well, he'll be on the pace. And White Abario will be right off. So if for some reason horses don't go, maybe Johnny V can steal it on top, but White Abario is likely a single for me. Jason?
Yeah, I mean, you hate to criticize this field because, Friday's card to me is an unbelievable card, and I think Saturday's card's really good also. This race just didn't turn out well, but I think it's a match race, right? To me, it's between the 2 National Treasure and the 6 White Abario. I'm also going to side with the 6 White Abario, but I have to use both of them in the pick 5. But I do like your horse, Chalky, but I don't like him to win. I'm going to try to key to 5 Hoist the Gold second. So I'll just do like a 2-6 over 5 exacta and just hope I could beat one of those 2 with Hoist the Gold. Just kind of try to hammer that. But for me, it's 2-6, and I move on.
Jimmy?
It seems like in this particular podcast, we're either going to be the smartest guys in the world, or they're never going to listen to us again.
Hey, Jimmy D, we gotta put a pick 5 together that day at the track. What do
Yeah,
you
we'll,
think?
we'll get it. We'll get it.
Okay. All right. All
It's
right.
always just right there. Um, I don't
Okay.
have much of a different
We're
thought.
We're on a pick 5 winning streak at Saratoga. Don't
There you
forget.
go. Well, thanks to you.
I
Thanks to
want
you,
to be.
Chalky.
I want to
Thanks
be
to Jimmy.
included.
He was the best putting it together. You know, it's funny. And I like White Barrio. You know, I'll give you the Ric Flair end of it. To beat a man, you got to beat the man. And you know what? He's the man right now. Now, whether it's the juice that Dutrow puts in him or whatever, because he certainly wasn't the same horse without Dutrow. But something that Dutrow has done has changed his horse's career, and wonderfully, and I'll go for that. National Treasure, Baffert's always got him ready, so I think he's a certain threat. So those two horses, I had a notation that National Treasure not in the rain, but obviously the weather forecast has changed. It looks like it's going to be nice enough. I don't understand this post time horse. Somebody has to explain to me. The Sheldon Russell and Brittany Russell, get this local Mid-Atlantic horse, and he's 7-2 morning line. I just don't get it. I would have made him 17-1. I think it's a 2-horse race too, and I think White Barrio wins.
All right. Yeah. We will move on to race 11, which is the Manhattan, 4 years and older, mile and 3/16 on the turf, which is a change from the typical distance at Belmont, which is 1.25 miles. We have 9 horses entered for 6 different grade 1 winning trainers. So some good horses in here. Jason, lead it off.
Yeah, I'm going to go 3 deep here. My top pick is going to be the 9 measured time for Appleby and Buick. Another replay horse. Watched a lot of turf replays the last couple of days, so hopefully it's going to help. But the horse has got a crazy turn of foot. So I think he's the most likely winner of this race. But you have to use the 5 program trading. I mean, he's got to win at Saratoga. He's 3 for 3 in grade 1s. He's got Pratt. Have to use him. My one long shot is I'm gonna throw in the 4 strong quality for Cassie and Giroux. He's going to get the lead. I think he's coming out of a mile race, if I remember correctly. But he's going to get the lead. He's the predominant speed in this race, and he might get an easy lead. I'm sorry?
He's coming out of the mile dirt race at Churchill.
Right, okay. So I think he's going to get the lead. New York, how they choke horses back. You never know. If he keeps going, I'll certainly throw him in. And then for a board horse, I like the 6 Al Rifa, not the win, but my win candidates are the 4, 5, and 9.
Jimmy?
Chucky, what I think is, and this would be my single. I think program training. He's a length and a quarter from being undefeated. He's got his top buyer in the last race. Brown's got him cranked up for this race. He's sitting in Saratoga just waiting for this race. It's a Klarovich horse. They love to win on big days. If I was going to single anybody, it would be right here. I just think that horse will dominate this field. I really love him. And I think Pratt, who I don't think has had the greatest Triple Crown that I've ever seen. I watched him in Kentucky, and he was poor, to say the least. He stole a race, but he stole a race that 4 other ones that he didn't, that he could have, been very, very aggressive with. He wasn't. But program training, I think, is Brown's one of his top horses, top grass horse, and I think he should really dominate this race. If I was giving you anybody else in that race, I give you the 1. I'm very busy. It's Irad again, and it's another Brown horse. So maybe it's a Brown exacta. I'm not sure. He's run well at Saratoga. Another guy. I love a horse who loves the track. Always remember that. Love a horse that loves the track. I don't know what that is, but they just seem to sense. Maybe it's the air, as I said to you many times. Maybe it's just the environment. I don't get it. But some horses thrive on certain tracks. I'd give you a Brown exacta here, but I would key program training.
Yeah, I make notes on the Saratoga season. And my notes last year, one of them was like definitely turf horses for courses at Saratoga is
Seems that
huge.
way.
So I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, so the one's going to be my top pick. I didn't get a chance to watch replays, and so the Turf Classic on Derby Day is one that I would have wanted to watch for this horse because the run line mentions some trouble on the trip. I don't specifically remember it, but it wasn't a great run. But I'm willing to give him a pass. Again, Irad stays on. It's Brown. Irad can beat anybody if he's got the horse for sure, and if he doesn't, he'll try to do everything he can to still win the race. I have the 9-2 Appleby Buick. Not going to cover that. And Program Trading was a horse I slept on in that race. Jason had him on Derby Day. I too much respect there not to have him, so it would be 1-9, 5 for me, which are the three favorites. So sorry,
And I'll tell you, Chalky. I did focus on that horse when watching replays. I didn't see the trouble he had. I mean, Irad got him outside, and he started to make his move, and he just flattened out. He just didn't have it that day. I don't know if he didn't like the track or, but
the note mentions fractious. I don't remember if he was like acting up going into the gate, might have worked himself up. I honestly don't remember, but I mean, the horse had some good races, and Irad stays on him, so I'm not going to discount it. I don't think anybody is, but.
The reason I didn't use him is I just think Program Trading is better than him.
Yeah.
So if it's going to be a Brown horse, I think it's Program Trading. But
all right, so that takes us to the final leg, race 12, the main event of the day. The Belmont Stakes run this year at 1.25 miles. Last jewel of the Triple Crown. Fourth different track that the Belmont Stakes has been run at. It started at Old Jerome Park, which Jimmy might remember, and then it switched to when Belmont opened in 1905 and was run continuously at Belmont, except in the 60s when they renovated and ran it at Aqueduct the last time around. First time since 2013 that we get both the Derby and Preakness winners in this race when the same horse did not win both with and have a Triple Crown on the line. So at least it shapes up a little more interesting than in years past. We'll go horse by horse like we normally do for the big races. And we'll start it off with the Preakness winner, Seize the Gray, the one horse. We'll keep the same order. So, Jason, we'll start with you.
Okay, so Seize the Gray obviously got an easy lead in the Preakness on a wet track. We all know that for whatever reason, the Tory decided not to, pressure this horse, and he just kept going. He's going to have to go again from the one post, right? Because there's other horses that are going to be interested in getting to the front. So he's not going to get an easy lead. So I'm going to be against him to win, but I don't hate him as much as other people may. I think he could get the board. I'm not. If he wins, I'm going to lose. I'll tell you right now. But I'm not going to totally toss him. I think he could get like third, something like that.
Jimmy?
I'll tell you, Jim, as you know, the Belmont to me has been a difficult race. I spent a lot of money chasing Silver Charm, real quiet, charismatic, War Emblem, Funny Side, Smarty Jones, Big Brown. I have another in California Chrome. That's all you need to know about Jimmy D. He's got a sentimental heart, and when there's a Triple Crown to be won, I try to win it because it's such a unique feat. That didn't happen until American Pharaoh and Justify. But getting into this crop of 3-year-olds is pedestrian, to say the least. I think anybody can win this race. I know we're starting with Seize the Gray. That kid Torres is good. He's real good. He's thinking about moving his tack to New York, and he should. He'll be successful. He's that good. But I don't think this horse is going to get away with lone speed on this particular Belmont day. I always like horses in the front on Belmont. I don't like closers in the Belmont. You would think in a long race, and I know this is just 1.25 miles, not a mile and a half, but I just don't think that this horse from the inside, he's going to have some front pace with him. I think he'll explode at some point in time. And, D. Wayne Lucas, sort of like Pletcher, They're not my favorite 3-year-old trainers of all time. As many races that they've won, there's been as many horses as they have lost, literally have lost along the route. And when I say lost, God help me, I'm talking about destroyed. And I don't respect that. And when Lucas has a horse, comes right back with him all the time, right back with him. I don't see sees the gray can stay with this group again, not 3 weeks later. Then he pulls the upset. I just don't see him.
Yeah, I don't think he's a win candidate for the reasons you just mentioned. I mean, I don't think he gets lone speed, easy lead, set slow fractions like he did in the Preakness. Look, I mean, back to back. Well, Pate Miles not grade one anymore, but two nice wins. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it wasn't the
Yeah.
greatest Preakness ever. Jason said, board horse, sure, he can hang around for a piece at third, but he's not going to be a win candidate for me. All right, on to number 2, Resilience. So I lied. I'm going to break the order because I'm going to go first here and save the Derby winner for Jimmy next to lead off with. But Resilience, number 2, Alvarado for Belmont. It's a horse that I think Jimmy and I both had in the wood. And I didn't hate in the Derby, although not to win. I don't like him in this spot. I don't have him on the board anywhere. I mean, could it be fourth in a super? Yeah, most of these horses could be, except for maybe, well, we'll get to that later. But fourth at best. I just don't think this is going to be the race that sets up well for him. And I don't think he's going to be good enough. So, yeah, not a horse I'll be using. Jason?
All right, so I told you guys I watched a lot of replays. I must have watched the Derby probably 20 times. I just like to watch. I just like to watch each horse, watch their trip and stuff. And when I watched this horse in the Derby, I said, he probably ran one of the best races of anyone in the Derby because he was pretty close to the pace, and he hung up there. He finished. We ended up finishing 6th. I believe it was 6th. Actually, I can tell you right now.
Yeah,
he finished 6th. So, and then I was like, if that horse comes back in the Preakness, I'm going to be interested in him. And then Mock came out and said, oh, well, I don't know if this horse wants the distance and this and that. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm wrong. And then all of a sudden, Mop throws him into the Belmont. You know what? I am very interested in this horse. I think this horse has a legit shot in this race. I am probably only going to pick 2 horses to win this race, and he's definitely going to be one of them. I think he's live, and again, if he's not an A, he's 1A or 2A or whatever you want to say. He's a win candidate for me.
Jimmy?
Chalky, I'll tell you what. Jason's stealing a little bit of my thunder. I'm starting to get better, but I love Resilience in this race. He's my key pick. I know you don't like him, pal, but something about Mott holding a horse out and putting him back in. I don't know what he sees, but I consider Belmont head and shoulders above Baffert and above Pletcher. I know I can get a lot of kickback for that, but that's my opinion. This guy spots a horse perfectly. Something about this Resilience. I know we both had him in the wood, and that was nice to have a winner. But that trip in the Derby, when he was second, he got blocked. He don't get blocked. He might have won that Derby.
And he was wide
That's
the whole
correct.
trip too.
That's
he was
exactly
wide.
right.
Yeah.
And I watched it again because when I was there, I couldn't see that. But watching it again made me like this horse even more. And I know his buyer figures and everything else doesn't really, put him in that category of coming up and winning this Belmont. But when they made this race 1.25 miles, Mott jumped right in. And let me tell you something. I think that horse can come right back and win this race. He's been over this track. It was his first race, when he first started running. He didn't run well that day. But Irad thought enough of him to want to run with this horse that day. I think there's something special about this horse just waiting to be discovered. I love him. If you get 10-1 on him, let's get some value for our customers. That's the whole idea of this podcast. Let's win with value. And if he wins, we're right. If he doesn't, We're trying hard.
All right. We'll move on to number 3, Mystic Dan, the Derby winner. Came back, didn't run terrible in the Preakness, but sees the gray having the lead. He tried to make a move. He couldn't get there, but finishes second. We'll start off with Jimmy. You were there at the Derby.
It
You
was a
saw
good
his
race,
big
Jim.
win. What do you think about him here?
It really was a good race. I mean, he did nothing wrong in that race. He tried. He lost by 2.5 lengths. I have nothing against this horse. If I'm playing exactas and trifectas and supers, he's in. He's definitely in. He can win again. I've seen many horses win the Derby and come back and win the Belmont. You got to give him credit. He's running all three. He may run in all three of these races. For anybody listening on this podcast, that's a 5-week span. These horses, 3-year-olds, always remember 3-year-olds. And some of these 3-year-olds are not 3-year-olds because, it's always January 1st is their birthday. Some of these horses are born June. Some of them are born in May, which makes them almost 3 years old for most of these races. This horse is a challenger. He's game. He's, as Ken McPeak said, the faster he eats, the faster he runs. I believe that. The faster a horse eats, the faster they run. They're healthy. They're energetic. They want to engage. This horse is all of that. I wouldn't leave him off, and it wouldn't surprise him if he won. I'd put him in, but I think I got the winner.
Yeah, I'll say I'm not going to knock the horse. It's not a shocker if he wins. I'm not using him to win anywhere. But if you think he can't hit the board, you're fooling yourself. Even if he doesn't in the end, but not a winner for me. Jason.
Yeah, I kind of agree, Chalky. He's coming off triple threes on Theragraph. But it is his third race in 5 weeks. I think he's a good horse. He's definitely a better horse than I thought he was. I'm not going to use him to win, but I am definitely using him like second, third in exactas and tries. I'm not throwing him out at all. I'm just going to try and beat him that day.
Fair enough. All right, on to number 4, the Wine Steward, coming out of the Peter Pan. Mike Maker with Franco aboard. Jason, starting with you.
So he might be a pace presence in this race, but I'm just not. I looked at his Theragraph pattern. I'm not really crazy about that. I don't see it. I'm throwing him out. Toss for me.
Jimmy.
Choki, I think this Wine Steward is the most aptly named horse I've ever seen. Out of Vino Rosso, the dam is called to service, and he's Wine Steward. Come on, man, you gotta love that name. But I don't see it either. I agree with Jason. I don't know where this horse is going. If he wins, it would be a surprise to me. They put Manny Franco back on him. I don't know how that's an improvement over Luis Saez. Maybe Maker thinks that as the trainer. But I don't see it. I've seen stranger things happen, but he's not for me.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think the Saez switch is more because he's first call on the 6, who we'll get to in a minute. So he probably had to take that first. But yeah, he could be up near the pace to ensure that there is some pace, but he's not a win candidate for me either. All right, number 5, Antiquarian, the Peter Pan winner, Todd Pletcher with Johnny V aboard. They've won this race before, albeit at the mile and a half distance a couple times. I'll go first. This is a horse I liked in the Louisiana Derby off of the pattern that Kings Barnes had the year before. Didn't get it done that day, but then came back to win the Peter Pan against a couple horses that are in here. This is going to be one of my win candidates. I would love to be able to get 12-1. I think that might be a little generous. Somewhere between 8 and 10-1 might be more likely where it goes off. But will be forwardly placed. Won't be on the lead, but shouldn't be that far off. And, this is a horse, as of the time we were handicapping today, we didn't have some of the sheets available. I would like to see what his sheet numbers were on the last 2 races because he's been progressing with the buyers, but he paired 92s. I'd like to see what the sheet numbers are. But to me, he's a horse I'm going to be using to win here. I don't know who's going to go next, so let's just say Jason.
Yeah, this horse has an interesting pattern for sure. I liked him in the same races that Chalky liked him. Um, Bletcher's good with Belmont horses. He might not be good with Derby horses, but he's good with Belmont horses. He's not a total throwout for me by any means. Um, for me, he's more likely for the board than to win. But if somebody, wanted to put a pick 5 together and I'm included in it and wanted to include him in the race, in the pick, I wouldn't be against it. I just personally am going to try and beat him and just have him finish second or third.
All right, Jimmy.
I think you guys hit it right on the head. This horse could win. There's no question about it. At 12-1, it's Pletcher. Pletcher's got 3 in here, and he's notorious with that. Even though I'm the first guy to say Pletcher with these 3-year-old Triple Crowns, he is 6 for 70. 6 for 70.
Yeah.
I'm not impressed. However, this is Saratoga, and Pletcher owns Saratoga. He's owned it for a lot of years. Did this horse outkick his coverage? I don't know. He's lightly raced. He won the Peter Pan, and everybody knows that. I believe that the Peter Pan winner last year was Arcangelo, who won this race. He's consistent, and Velasquez has got the same role when you think about this that Smith has had. Smith was the go-to guy in the last 5 or 6 years with key horses. He picked his spots. Now it's getting more difficult for Smith. He's getting older. They're not giving him the opportunity. Velasquez, as Baffert is using him, a lot of guys are using Pletcher is using him, Maker's using him. There's something about it. If he thinks this horse is that good and his agent thinks this horse is that good, I wouldn't leave him off. It would be no surprise at 12-1 that this horse gets a piece of the action. I would say beware of Antiquarian.
All right, that's on to number 6, Dornoch. Came out of the Derby, finished 10th, which is probably actually not a bad finish, all things considered, that he was way farther back than he likes to be. Co-owned by Phillies legend Jason Worth. Jimmy, let's start off with you because I believe you or somebody you were close to had a chance to meet the owner down in Kentucky.
Yeah, if my wife is with me in Belmont, she will probably yell so loud that this horse will probably be scared at some point in time and run lousy. But she loves Jason Worth and she loves the horse. You got to throw the Kentucky Derby race out. You come from the 1 in the 20 horse field, you get eaten up. You just get covered up and you're done. Can this horse win? Sure. He was compromised in the Derby. He's got early speed. He gets out there. He just might get a piece of the action. I just don't like him. I don't think he has the staying power to go 1.25 miles. I think at some point in time, and I know Good Magic, Curlin, and he's got the lineage, but I just don't think this horse has got it. He's regressing in his buyers, which I never like to see in a horse, not a 3-year-old anyhow, that he's getting worse, not better. Maybe it's the trip that's compromised him, but so many other horses in this race have beat him. I just don't see him rising to the top and winning this race. I'd leave him off the board.
Yeah, I was happy to get bet against this horse in the Derby, and I'm even more happy to bet against him in the Belmont with people who think you throw the Derby out because it's the Derby. Got nowhere, anywhere for me. Jason?
Yeah, I agree. He'll be a pace presence for sure, but he's just not fast enough to win. You have to eliminate horses. You can't pick every horse, so I'm just going to toss him, and if he hits the board, I'm going to wind up losing.
All right. On to 7, Protective. Second Pletcher horse. First of 2 horses for Mike Rapoli in here. Not including Fierceness, who may never run again. We'll see. Gaffleone switches mounts from one of the logical favorites here, although probably wasn't by choice, I would think. Jason, we'll start with you.
Yeah, this horse has improved as a 3-year-old. There's another one. He's a maiden. I just don't think he's fast enough. Could he get the board at 1,000,000-1? Maybe. Maybe I'll throw him in at the bottom of my trifecta or something. But he's not winning.
Jimmy?
It's a Maglio d'Oro out of Grace Hall. Both great horses. Grace Hall out of Empire Maker. Um, Young horse, developing. Um, I think it's more of a thank God, Todd Pletcher, you've entered your third horse. So we have 10 horses running in the Belmont. So, Todd, what we'll do for you later at Saratoga is set up a race for you. We'll write the race for your conditions, and we'll let you win a $200,000 race. That's what they usually do. Protective will get better, but not on Saturday.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, like Antiquarian also lightly raced, but he hasn't won, and I don't see Saturday being his first win. So, no go for me on anything. All right. 8, Honor Marie. Drew on for Beckman. Finished 8th in the Derby. Will probably not finish 8th here, but is one of maybe 6 horses that could finish 3rd. Not for me. Even though he got jostled around a little bit in the Derby. Jason, if you watch that, you could probably talk more about that. But he's just not a win candidate for me here. Jason, I'll throw it to you.
He definitely got jostled around in the Derby. I thought he had somewhat of a chance for the board in the Derby. He's a deep closer. He has a pattern where he's good at it in every other race. So this race, I guess, would be the pattern that that he would be good in. But even if he's good, I don't know. I don't think he's good enough to win this race. I'm going to try and beat him. I'm going to even try to beat him for the board. I'm just going to throw this horse out.
Jimmy?
So, okay, I look at this horse. In the Risen Star, he broke last. In the Louisiana Derby, he broke last. In the Kentucky Derby, he broke last. It's too much to do to make up that kind of ground in these kind of races against quality horses. I just don't see him. I know he had some strange. I don't know who this B. Curtis guy is, to be honest with you, but Florent Giroux is excellent in Kentucky. He comes to New York, he's a whole different jockey because they're a little bit more aggressive. They got him get his way in Kentucky. They don't do it in New York. I don't see this horse anywhere. That's me.
All right. We'll go to the 9, the morning line favorite, Sierra Leone at 9-5. Lost the Derby by a nose. Jockey change. Gaffleone was his Derby rider, and he's off now for Flavian Pratt. Maybe an upgrade there in some folks' minds. Jimmy, what do you think?
Sierra Leone closed on a day that I think I mentioned this to Jason because he asked me a question about it that day. You couldn't move on the outside on Derby Day at a certain point in time in the day. And he closed into it and closed well into it. And if it wasn't for that little nonsense that happened between him and Forever Young, we don't really know if he could have won that race. There's nothing bad to say about him. The bit change, they went from a Snapple bit to a cage or a housing bit, which simply means it's a bigger bit. You can control the horse better. Does that really matter? I'm not so sure how much better Tyler Gaffleone is than Flavian Pratt. I understand it's a jockey change. I understand Pratt is much more successful, but I'm not sure that really is going to make the difference. This horse, sometimes, horses are herd animals. Sometimes they like to be in the mix. They don't like to be in the front of the mix. They like to be in the mix. This horse seems to me like he's that kind of horse. And I know he's been first or second all his career. He's won almost $2 million. There's nothing bad to say about this horse. He's a gun runner, which is always, to me, is thank you. But I see him on the board. I don't see him winning.
All right. For me, he wasn't really a top Derby pick for me because I thought he was going to have too much to do because of his running style and whatnot. And he did have too much to do, and he still almost won. But the nonsense he talked about, Jimmy, was caused by him completely and should have been taken down to 3rd. But it didn't make a difference because I didn't have the winner. But anyway, Pratt's an upgrade. I think this is the best horse in the race, so it's my other winner. And I think if Pratt just gets him a little better position, he could be sitting 6th. to where there's not as doesn't go 8 wide and doesn't have as much ground to make up. Coming from all the way back, where if a horse moves in front of you, you gotta veer and you gotta alter your course. This horse should win the race. He's the morning line favorite, but I think he's the best horse in here in my mind, and my other win candidate here. Jason?
Yeah, I think the jockey change might be pretty big because I have a feeling Pratt's not going to make him be like a total dead closer. I think Pratt's going to maybe get him into the race a little bit. And maybe he's not as far back and he doesn't have as far back to come. I mean, that being said, as far back as he had to come, I had Forever Young, and I was against this horse in the Derby. I had Forever Young. Either one of them could have won that Derby if they weren't banging against each other. I think this horse is legit. He's got a really good thoroughgraph pattern. He's my other win candidate. I don't like closers on dirt races. So I struggle with that, but I just think he's better than these other horses in this race. I think he's, if you ask me who's winning this race, it's him. But I like Resilience almost as much, but my top pick would be Sierra Leone.
All right, so the last horse in the race is 10, Mindframe. IRAD on board for Pletcher and Rapoli. That's a dangerous trifecta right there. The horse is 2 for 2 by a combined 20 lengths, but his first move into stakes company, lightly raced. Jason, what are your thoughts?
So this might be the most talented horse in the race, from looking at his first 2 races, but you only have 2 races to look at. This is his 3rd race, and unless he's a monster, he's just going to have other pace. I think he's going to want to try to be up close. I think he's going to have other pace in this race. Now, Irad might try to make him sit off and go by, so that's to be seen, I guess. But if he wants to try to get the lead, he's going to have to battle with Seize the Gray and Dornoch to get there. I mean, I'm probably going to use him defensively because he just could be a monster. But in my main plays, I'm going to try and beat this horse and just go with the 2 other horses that I liked.
Jimmy?
I see Mindframe as an absolutely overrated horse. It's his 2nd race, or 3rd race, I'm sorry, of his career. He's coming out of a non-winners of 1 that he won by 7 lengths. You could throw that race right out. It's ridiculous. He's untested. It's Rapoli and Pletcher, so he's going to be overbet. There's absolutely no value in a horse like this. Now, could he win? Of course. Could he be something spectacular? Of course. They paid $600,000 for this horse. I'm sure they think this horse is something special. Out of Constitution, Walk of Stars was a very good dam. But you know what? There's so much overbet value here that he's proved nothing against nobody. Can he win? Yeah. Will he be betting New York? Yeah. I'm not betting him. I just don't think the value is there for this horse. It's Pletcher again. You know my feelings about Pletcher in 3-year-old Triple Crown races. I just don't think this horse is worth the bet. There's no value in the bet, whether he wins or not. Not for me.
All right, and I'll wrap it up. I ended up in the same mind frame, I guess. No pun intended. Could, like Jason said, could maybe be the most talented horse in the race. But 27-1, absolutely, I'll take a shot. 7-2 or whatever he's going to be at, can't bet him at that. So probably not even defensively on any tickets. So maybe somewhere down the road, but not this weekend at Saratoga. All right, so pick 5s. We just gave you all the races. We'll go through now. Jason, do you have a ticket?
I do. So race 8, I'm going to single 8 Flajos. Race 9, I'm going to go 2 deep with the 8 Cogburn and the 12 Mischief Magic. Race 10, the Met Mile, I'm just going to go with the 2, I think it's a match race, the 2 National Treasure and the 6 White Barrio. Race 11, the Manhattan, I'm going to go 3 deep. I'm going to go with 4 Strong Quality, 5 Program Trading, and the 9 measured time. And I'm only going to go too deep into Belmont. I'm going to go with Resilience, the 2, and the 9 Sierra Leone. And I guess doing quick math, that would be for $1, $24.
Jimmy, do you have a ticket?
Sure do. And my friends in New York will love this. I'm just going to make them richer than they are. But it's a 50-cent pick 5. It should cost $27. I would go with the 4, 7, 8 in that first leg in the 8th race, 6, 8, 12 in the 10th race, the 2 and the 6, and that was the Metropolitan, and that's a 2-horse race. I would single that 5, as I stated earlier, in the 11th, and the 2, 3, 9 in the 12th. That's a 3, 3, 2, 1, and 3 across. Should be $27 for 50 cents.
All right, and quickly, I have 1, 8, 9 in the first leg, 2, 8, 12 in the second. I did say White Barrio could be a single, but I'm going to go 5, 6, so I'll use 2 in the Met Mile. 1, 5, 9 in the Manhattan, and 5, 9 in the Belmont. For a 50-cent ticket, that is $36. All right. Anything else on any of the 2 days you guys want to mention? Jimmy, you want to tell us who you think is going to win the poker on Saturday, I guess? Or
Well, anybody that's listened to this podcast, and I have a couple friends that listen, Casa Creed is running on Sunday. It's the poker, as Jimmy just mentioned, a grade 3. A grade 3. He's an 8-year-old running in a grade 3. An 8-year-old. He wins this race and points towards the 4-star Dave. If he happens to win the 4-star Dave, which he's an 8-year-old. I'm a little older now, too. I don't think I can run as fast as I could. There's not a lot of things I can't do as fast as I could, but I could still do them. This horse wins, they're going to rename the 4-star Dave Casa Creed. You got to love a horse that tries. Go, little guy.
I would agree that I think there's a Saratoga race in his future. I think it would be disgraceful if it's the 4-star Dave, considering the history that horse had there. But nonetheless, yes, if he were to do it again this year, he could certainly have something in the future. Jason, anything else on any other races you want to mention?
No, not that I could think of. Like I said, Friday's card I think is great. I think Saturday's card is really good too. Jimmy D, I'll see you about group pick 5.
We'd love to do that.
So we'll get something together.
We'll have to get Meeker's money before we hit the bar, but then we'll get it.
Yeah, Meeker's opinion will not count. He could contribute, but his opinion will not matter.
I don't know what they're charging now to revamp Jim Dandy, but it's not going to be cheap.
Listen, I'm only going to say this in conclusion from me. This is podcast 110. We're all going to Saratoga. I hope there's a podcast 111. God bless you, Tommy, wherever you are. I hope you're okay.
Well, the good news is that I think they upgraded the bathrooms, so your spot in Section M might not be as bad as it's been in the past. But anyway, this is episode 110 of Broad Street Hustle. Next week, we have the 3rd of the golf majors, U.S. Open. So we'll be back with that, with our usual golf talk with the majors. Let's win some money this weekend. Episode 110, Broad Street Hustle. Have a good night.